the story of our world every day. Listen and your heart may open up. If ever you feel frightened of our world that's washed away, a mother is a mother, come to us. Women, 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 women. Women sew the fabric of our world every day. History of violence made it through. The stories that we share will all live on, and so we say these truths are our gifts passed on to you.
Welcome to tonight's hashtag 101 Night Show. I'm Lisa Liebau, co-founder and president of the Scheherazade Project, a women's activism through storytelling arts movement that uses the power of art, creativity, solidarity, and courage in promoting social justice, nourishing our spirits, and enabling a more beloved community. We're more than halfway through our Election Day countdown with creativity. We've been showcasing our strong voices to encourage all Americans to use their voices in the most important way, vote. Join us live every night, 8 p.m. Eastern, or watch previous episodes by visiting YouTube, Facebook, and IGTV. Tonight's featured artist is Amy Wachspress. She holds an MA in English Language and Literature and makes a living as a grant writer. She's secured more than $200 million in grant funds for programs and projects in almost every state. She's the author of the children's fantasy adventure, The Call to Shakabaz, and the adult novel, Memories from Cherry Harvest. She writes regularly on her blog, The View from Amy's World, but as you'll see tonight, writing is not the only way Amy tells stories. I bring you Amy Wachspress.
As my 65th birthday approached, I asked my husband, children, and grandson to each give me a half a yard of brightly colored 100% cotton fabric as a birthday gift. I planned to use the fabric to make myself a quilt. The fabrics they gave are exquisite and representative of them. For instance, my son, who has a passion for anime, gave me fabric covered in Totoros, a famous Hayao Miyazaki character. My daughter-in-law, the florist, chose flowers. My grandson, who adores anything that goes, chose cars and airplanes. And my son, the musician, chose a woven fabric, since he weaves sounds and music. From the raw material provided, I pieced a personal story cloth of family, home, ancestry, land, and the fruition of a decades-long marriage to my husband, keeper of my heart. The quilt contains the family's gifted fabrics, as well as fabrics I have used in the past to make quilts for life cycle events, graduations, weddings, births. Fabrics handed down to me by my mother and grandmother, fabrics designed and printed by an artist friend, and fabrics taken from dresses I wore when pregnant with my children and during my years raising them. One square features a Hmong story cloth given to me when I left a job that I loved. The Hmong have no traditionally authentic written language. They preserve narratives of their history through story cloths. The one included in my quilt depicts their grief when forced to leave their ancestral home and the plants, animals, and natural environment they cherished. I identify with this loss. I raised my 3 children on 40 acres of remote forest, and it grieved me to leave that home when my husband and I could no longer manage out on the land and moved into town to be nearer to resources. The individual squares in my quilt represent my husband, my 3 children, my 2 daughters-in-law, my 2 grandsons, my matriarchal ancestors, and the home I left in the forest. There's also a square to represent future grandchildren I may have, and there's the Hmong story cloth that resonates with me. One of the images shows the back of the quilt. I pieced it myself, and then I paid a quilter to quilt it on a long-arm sewing machine for me. The quilting pattern I chose, is hands. You can see them more clearly on the back of the quilt than on the front. When I wrap myself in my birthday quilt, I feel embraced by family, home, people, land, and personal history. It comforts me in these miserable times we're living through and gives me hope for the future. May love hold us in its embrace and save us all.
Thanks for joining the sisters tonight. If you've joined us other nights, I'm sure you too are impressed by the diversity of storytellers' approaches. Some have created new work for their night's performance, others have shared previous work, but all have signed on to support us by sharing their voices. By the time we reach November 2nd, the eve of the 2020 election day, all eligible voters will be ready to raise their voices too, in the most important way of all. Go vote, everyone.
Come to us, women, 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 women. Women sew the fabric of our world every day. History of violence made it through. The stories that we share will all live on, and so we say these truths are our gifts passed on to you. Women.